The Miami Heat just continue to prove to us that they should not be slept on. It doesn't matter the situation they're in. It doesn't matter who they're up against. It doesn't matter who they have, who they don't have. It doesn't matter where they're playing at. They are still going to come and compete. They're still going to come and bring it. As long as this Heat culture thing is real, the Miami Heat never feel like they are out of a playoff series. They stole one in game 2 against the Celtics, marched into TD Garden, which is one of the toughest places to play in if you're an opposing team, without Jimmy Butler, without Terry Rozier. So down 2 big-time starters, and they get a big-time win. Historic three-point shooting performance, obviously. Great performances from Tyler Herro, Bam Adebayo, Jaime Jaquez, Nikola Jovic, Caleb Martin. They were just awesome all game long. Really interesting defensive strategy they deployed against the Celtics, where they went with less zone, so we know they are a very high volume zone defensive team. But this game, their strategy was to kind of bait Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown into more one-on-one heavy possessions and stay home on shooters, right? So usually what ends up happening and what really ignites the Celtics offense is guys like JB and Brown, or Jaylen Brown and Tatum, they're able to penetrate, get into the paint. Teams help a lot, or they'll even help on these isolations, and that frees shooters. And this is a Celtics team that can space the floor very well. All 5 of their starters can knock down threes. The Miami Heat decided to stay home on shooters, limited Boston's three-point shooting. Boston shot it below their season average from the three-point line they made, or they put up 43 three-point attempts throughout the regular season. Last night, I think they got just 36, and that strategy worked. And like I said, on the other end, the Heat were able to win that three-point shooting battle by knocking down more threes on more attempts. So interesting defensive strategy. As I said, it was a little bit different than what we're used to seeing with the Miami Heat, where they're running a ton of zone. We'll see how sustainable it is. But if you're a Celtics fan, there are multiple reasons for you to be disappointed. So if you're the best team in the NBA, as a lot of people believe the Celtics were for majority of the season, games like this, you're up 1-0 coming into it. You still have this home court advantage. You have this really talented roster. You take advantage of that, and you take a commanding lead. You put your foot on the opposing team's neck, and you make that statement that we're not giving this series up to you. We're not letting you get an inch. We're not letting you get any shot of confidence in you. You take that confidence away from that opposing team as soon as possible. 2013, the Miami Heat, they did that in the first round against the Milwaukee Bucks, right? The Golden State Warriors throughout their entire era, both with and without Kevin Durant, when they were winning championships, they were doing that. They had an opportunity to sweep a series. They were going to take it. Point blank, period. They were not going to let the other team get any shot of confidence in them at all. If you're the Celtics, that is what you need to be doing. You take a commanding 2-0 lead with everything in your favor, every single advantage. You take that 2-0 lead to destroy Miami's confidence heading into games 3 and game 4. Now, in giving up game 2 and allowing the series to be tied at 1-1, going into Miami, this gives Miami all the confidence that they need. And as I said, you're already dealing with a team that has a dog mentality anyway. This is a team who does not care who they have out there on the floor. They're still going to come and compete. Boston knows that. So why give them this momentum? Why give them that opportunity? So what if they take game 3, right? And make this series a lot harder than what it should. That taxes your best players a lot more. Game 2, you should have been able to sit Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown late in the fourth quarter, all your starters late in the fourth quarter, and rest them up before traveling out to Miami. So that's the type of stuff that makes you question the Celtics and how good they really are and how much different they are from previous postseasons. A lot of people were reluctant to be really happy about how good they were in the regular season because of stuff like this. If you're this talented of a team, if you're this dominant of a team, when you have this opportunity, you take it. All of the best teams, when they have that opportunity, they take it. What are we seeing right now with the Denver Nuggets? That's a 2-7 matchup. You're the defending champions. They are not going to allow LA to get any inch of confidence in them. They're not going to allow it. You take that commanding 2-0 lead, and you take that into the rest of the games in the series, that puts the other team at a major mental disadvantage. So why give Boston this confidence? Or why give Miami this confidence? This team of all teams, why give them that? Why give them that? With the possibility of Terry Rozier being back. So maybe they add another shot creator. We know Jimmy isn't going to be back, but why give this particular group that type of confidence heading into Miami where we know it's going to be very, very tough to win? Why? Disappointing stuff for the Boston Celtics. And even if they do win this series, and I do have them still winning in 5 or 6, even though 6 would be way longer than what it should have been, right? They should be able to, they should have been able to sweep the series or make it go 5. But even if they win it, it still makes you question, how do things look the rest of the postseason? What if we match up against the Milwaukee Bucks when they have Giannis back, if the Bucks are able to get past the Pacers? Or what if we meet up against the New York Knicks, who aren't going to give up an inch to us either, right? They're going to want to go out there and compete and give 110% regardless of who's out there on the court, regardless of who they don't have. Or let's say they do make a really good run through this postseason and get to the NBA Finals. Can they beat the Denver Nuggets? Right? So your question is right now with what we saw in game 2, and I don't want to overreact, but that stuff we saw in game 2 is reminiscent of stuff we've seen in the past with the Celtics. How confident are we with what we just saw that the Celtics group is a title winning team? I'm not saying they're not. I'm just questioning our confidence because, like I said, that type of stuff that we saw in game 2 is stuff we've seen before. Remember, they fall down and they're kind of in a hole against the Heat last year in the conference finals, even though there is also a talent discrepancy there. That was a Heat team that was in the play-in tournament and had to work their way through the playoffs as I think an 8 seed. The Celtics were one of the top seeds in the NBA, and they found themselves in that position. That's very reminiscent. This is one of those where if you're the Boston Celtics, man, where you should have sealed it. You should have took that commanding 2-0 lead. Now you're giving this team way too much confidence heading in to game 3 and game 4, pivotal games 3 and game 4. You're going to let them go up 2-1? Is that what's going to end up happening? So those are the types of things to be concerned about right now if you were a Boston Celtics fan. And I love how Miami kind of baited Tatum and Brown, I said it before, into that one-on-one heavy style where they really fall in love with these contested looks, because that in the past has presented a wall for the Celtics and for this duo in particular. And so we'll see how sustainable that'll end up being, right? Because they were hitting those shots. And yeah, Boston did get a lot of easy looks at the rim as a result of the Heat staying home on shooters and not helping as much. But it's one of those pick your poison things, because we know if Boston gets completely rolling from 3, it's tough to come back from that. So we'll see how sustainable the Miami Heat's defensive approach was, and also their shooting. We'll see how sustainable that is, because 23 three-pointers is a lot. You're not hitting that every single night in the playoffs at all, especially for a group that's generally subpar offensively. But as I said, from a mental perspective, and a lot of playoff games are won based off of mental edges. This means so much for the Heat. This means a lot. And there's a potential of them having more help with Terry Rozier possibly coming back for the rest of this series. As I said, we know Jimmy Butler's probably not going to be back this series and the rest of the postseason, but you can't let this Heat team get an inch on you. They have that inch. They have that momentum going into Miami, going back home to play these next 2 games. It's going to be rough here for the Celtics. Very rough, because the Heat are not going to end up letting up at all. It's one of the toughest teams to play. And you have to appreciate that about them. And this Heat culture thing is real. You have to appreciate that this team is going to go out there and compete and give 110%. And this speaks to how great of a coach Erik Spoelstra is. If you're a coach and you're able to work, there are a few coaches in the NBA, in NBA history, who are as good with working with less in the postseason. Very few. We've seen this guy bring this group to the NBA Finals last year as an 8 seed. We saw them run through the Eastern Conference in the bubble back in 2020. Erik Spoelstra is one of those coaches, even if he doesn't win another championship in Miami, which I don't think is going to happen, right? Still, the fact that he's able to do so much in the postseason with what he has every single year, working with so many undrafted guys, right, or so many young guys, or so many inexperienced guys alongside with their best players, what he's been able to do has been astounding. It's been one of the best things. And I don't think his last few years here in Miami should be judged by the championships. It's just how tough this team plays regardless of the situation that they're in. You have to really appreciate that about Miami. Point blank, period. So they have a ton of momentum headed into games 3 and game 4. Let's see what they're going to do defensively the rest of the series down. Do they stay with that strategy? Do they move back to zone? How much do they switch it up and alternate between those two in games 3 and game 4? We shall see. But the Celtics gave up the edge that they 110% should not have given up in game 2.